Hey, everybody, we're here, we're alive and thrive in the world's most culturally diverse city, Toronto, home of Blue Jays, Raptors, Maple Leafs, and Canadian psychic Robert Lindsy Milne. That's me. Welcome to my side of the crystal ball. We're going down a different path tonight. We're going to be covering the paranormal, and I have two guests on today, Kristen and Chris, and they have their own podcast, and it's called Bigfoot and the Bunny. A fascinating interview. This is an area of the psychism or the paranormal I haven't found much, I haven't explored very much. And the information and ideas and stories and ways of thinking that they're sharing with us tonight just blew me away. So it's an exciting show. You're going to be hearing a whole lot of things. And generally, because I've always been afraid of the paranormal because it's evil and awful and negative, and I'm finding out that that's not quite the case. So Bigfoot and the Bunny, they're in the expert's chair tonight. Before we start, I've got a couple of requests. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. You know, subscriptions are so important. When you subscribe, and incidentally, they happen to be complimentary, as in no charge. Subscribing gives us a lot more energy. It gives us recognition. It's kind of like in mainstream, it's like getting higher ratings. So if you like, please make a comment, say something about the show. And once again, that information or that energy makes our podcast get higher up in the ratings. And then we can do more of my side of the crystal ball. Incidentally, you can also find us on Apple, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere else our podcast, or you hear your podcasts. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally, you can find me on my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And now, without further ado, here comes WWRS. Have you ever wondered how we can do a psychic reading for somebody? Let's say I'm in Toronto and somebody else is in Australia. Have you ever thought, how does that happen? How can you connect with somebody 10,000 miles away? How is that possible? I'd like to explain that to you. And I'd like to talk about how it happens and the way you do it. So I think I'm going to be doing a couple of WWRSs about this topic. So I'm going to start off with how I started to do distance readings when I didn't even know I was doing distance readings. I had just left the tea room. I'd been started to work at the Larry's Hideaway Hotel. I was, I think, about 21, 22. And I worked, a few nights on the front desk. And then the rest of the days, I did psychic readings. And one day, I might have been 23. I woke up and looked around, and I was living in this flea bag hotel in exchange for room and board. I was getting paid a few, did other readings, and that brought in some money. And I just looked around and I thought to myself, this is not what I have in mind for what I want to do with my life, with my career. And I thought about what other ways I could do to market myself. Now I say market. It wasn't that sophisticated then. I was 23 and somewhat illiterate. So I thought, I wonder if I could do a reading for someone in front of me, could I do a reading for somebody on the telephone? And the only way to find out is to phone somebody and give it a try. So I started to phone my friends, and I would always ask permission. I started to phone my friends on a regular basis, like every day, not same ones. I started to phone my friends, and I started to practice doing psychic readings over the telephone. Now, this was back in the mid 1970s. That nobody did that then. Nobody even considered that then. And I just thought up maybe I could do it. So after several months of practice with friends or learning, I started asking my friends if they could tell their friends or ask their friends if I could call them. And I was doing that on a regular basis. And then I used to just give out my phone number, and incidentally, I used to come through the hotel front desk and up to my room. And it was one of those old-fashioned switchboards. And when I was calling out to people, it would the desk clerk that I was also a part-time at, he would have to dial the phone, and he'd also listen into the phone calls as well. So anyway, I then asked people to start calling me, and I just giving out my number, and this went on, for maybe a year and a half or so, and I'd get, it'd be like 3:00 in the morning, and I'd get a phone call, and they'd go, hello, hey, it's Joe. What can you tell me? And I would go from asleep to awake, and then I would just blab whatever I'd come to mind, but hang up the phone, then I'd go back to sleep. That went on for a while. And then one day I said to myself, how can I get the money? Like, how can I get paid? Because in 1975 or 76, first of all, credit cards were not ubiquitous then as they are now. And even if they weren't going to give me, living in a hotel with no visible means of support, nobody was going to let me be a credit card merchant. So I thought, and I thought, and I thought, I wonder if I can do readings on the telephone. Could I do readings on the radio on the telephone? And I thought, wow, what a thought. So a friend of mine was from a small city north of Toronto, Aurelia. And there was a radio station in Aurelia. And I thought, the only way I'm going to find out if you can do this on the radio, on the telephone, is be on the radio, on the telephone. So I phoned that radio station, and it was a very small one. And it was either CJOR or CFOR. One is a Vancouver station I was on, the other, so CF or CJOR. And this little small town radio station, the talk show host was also the morning man, and he also was the program director as well. And his name was Rusty Draper. And I phoned up, and I spoke to him, and I told him that my name was Robert Lindsy Milne, and I just started using that name. And I told him that I could do psychic readings for his callers. And he was kind of gruff, and he said, well, if you can do what you say, you're on my show tomorrow morning at 9:00. And if you can't do what you say, you're off my show tomorrow morning at 9:15. But if on those conditions, come on up. So I agreed to the conditions. I didn't have any money, by the way. And I was going on that radio show. So I hitchhiked all the way up to Aurelia that day. And there's a lake there called Lake Couchiching. And it's right on, the city is right on Lake Couchiching. And I slept in the park at night, and I swam in the lake for my bath, my shower, and I got to the radio show at the station. They were also broadcasting the talk show from the dining room in the Howard Johnson's hotel. And it was so that they could promote the dining room, so people would come and have dinner there and things like that, besides the guests. So I showed up, I slept in the park and swam in the lake. I showed up at the hotel, and they weren't sure if they're going to let me in. And anyway, I assured them I was on the show, and I went into the dining room, and it was just empty. There was nobody there. And I waited around, and like there were a couple of technicians, and then Rusty Draper showed up, and he introduced himself, and then we went straight down and sat on the platform where they did the show, and in front of all these empty tables. And he started to interview me. And then he said, so if you're so psychic, and we're at like 5 minutes after the hour, he says, so if you're so psychic, and there's no callers and there's nobody in the restaurant. So he says, so if you're so psychic, do something for me. And I said to him, there's some kind of, now this is from, you have to remember, this is back in the 1976s, so I'm telling the story, the exact detail isn't, so the exact words. So I said something about him having a business meeting with a person named Richardson. And Rusty's face turned white. And he said, nobody knows that. And what it turned out to be, he was being interviewed for another job. Anyway, he got serious with me, and then we started taking calls. Within about 20 minutes, because it was a small town, one radio station, and they could hardly get any others. About 20 minutes into the show, people started coming to the hotel, into the dining room. And by 9:30, the dining room was almost full. And at 20 to 10, the dining room was full. And people were coming up to the platform and asking me all kinds, standing there, and I would do psychic things. And then we would start, we'd do phone calls and things like that. And at about 10 to 10, the place was packed. There were some people standing outside. And Rusty looked at me and he said, can you stay on for another hour? They changed the programming because this was so popular in this town. So I said, sure. And we did another hour from 10 to 11. And there were lineups outside, and people were coming up to the microphone, and the place was just bouncing. But the big thing is, I was doing the exact same psychic things for the people in front of me as I was doing for the people on the telephone, on the radio. It was quite amazing. This went on until about 10 minutes to 11. And then Rusty said to me, can you stay on for another hour? And I said, sure. I was just buzzing like I had never buzzed before. And the people just kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And this went on and on. And also the phone lines were jammed. And I was doing the same kind of information with the people on the phone and the people in person. And the people that would be listening on the radio wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. How can you possibly explain that? How can that possibly be done? Well, I'm going to explain that in the next segment of WWRF. My guest tonight on the Expert's Chair is a couple, Kristen and Chris, and they are experts, and they study the paranormal, talking to spirits, finding haunted houses, doing all kinds of psychic things that I've never heard of before. They've had guests talking about things that I have never heard about before. They have so much new information. It's really exciting talking with Kristen, all about the paranormal and Bigfoot in the bunny. So I just want to get to this interview right now. So I'd like to welcome Kristen to the show. Hey, Kristen, thanks a lot for being on my side of the crystal ball tonight. Hey guys, welcome to my show. It's really exciting, having you on, because I think I've been on with you guys about what, 3 times? Is it 3 or 4?
So, yeah.
And you were instrumental in me deciding that I was going to be doing my podcast, and in the early days, it got me all excited about making my coming out of semi-retirement. So thank you for that.
Thank you for being on our show. We enjoy having you. You're a wonderful guest. So
thank you
to be on the other side of the table here.
Yeah. So how did you two come up with the idea of doing a podcast? I'm curious about that. What inspired you?
Well, we have a pretty good story about that. Kristen and I have known each other and crossed paths like our entire life. It would seem. We grew up a town away from each other, and there's a lot of intersections and synchronicities that go along with that. But long and short of it is we ended up dating, and Kristen was very turned off to the idea of the paranormal because she had had such traumatic experiences as a child. And this is something we find with our guests. Almost all of them have had some sort of haunted childhood experiences, including both of us. And it seems to carry on. So if you're an adult and you're into this kind of paranormal things or parapsychology, there's a good chance that you may have had some sort of childhood experiences. But the story goes, we were dating for a couple of years before we ever did anything paranormal.
So you were really into
I was more
paranormal field, right?
That's correct.
I wanted nothing to do with it.
I had been on paranormal teams and that sort of thing, and done all this, and I kind of gave it up and we went out. And her house, right? You want to tell?
So Kristen, you believed in the paranormal. You were just petrified of it.
Yes, I had a really traumatizing childhood of it. So I didn't want anything to do with it. I blocked a lot of things out, and And
a lot of your guests that you met that are into paranormal have had negative experiences?
Not necessarily negative, but they've almost all, there are exceptions, have had some sort of haunted childhood with a house they grew up in as a child. The monster in the closet or under the bed was just a little bit too real,
right?
And is things would move around or whatever it is. It's different by everybody, but they seem to have some kind of experience, and I think it's an interesting statistic, and it's not something I would have known without having the podcast. We're on twice a week now, so we talk to a lot of people, and that's almost always the rule.
So when you say paranormal, what is it that you mean by paranormal? See, I don't even know what paranormal is, and I've been doing my job for 50 plus years. What is paranormal?
Well, to us, it's, I was going to say anything that has to do with anything from UFOs to, I don't know, ghosts and...
It's really, paranormal just kind of means, not normal, something that doesn't happen to day-to-day life, that it's hard to explain or rationalize. It could be something like a haunting, or it could be, alien abduction phenomenon. It's paranormal. So
is being psychic in the paranormal?
I would say so, yes. I think all these things are related. Our real driving force is trying to figure out why it happens and why it occurs.
Being psychic with all the clairs and everything, it helps as well. The clairsentient and
to tune into what might be in a location, what might be in our own homes. Kristen's home had become haunted, so that's where we were leading to with that story.
I said, didn't mean, I just needed to, I was just asking a few questions that I didn't know.
This is great.
No, her house was built in what?
1740.
Wow.
It's quite old in New England.
That was before America was America.
Yes.
1776 is your,
yes.
right? Wow.
Yeah.
King Philip's War, which is the greatest battle between the white man and the Native American. Native Americans, the indigenous people here, started in Swansea, in our town,
and right actually where I
close by.
Yeah.
So you were seeing and sensing and energies and entities in and around where you lived?
Yes. Also things were moving and things were lighting up, and refrigerator door was opening and by itself. And it's really hard to open my refrigerator door. And I was hearing, because I'm a little clairaudient, and I was hearing voices and things, and were being, like I said, thrown, and it was getting too much.
It was building, like there was a lot of activity on the stairwell, people going up and down the stairs and nobody's there, that sort of thing. So she kind of cracks finally, and she says, Chris, why don't we just try to, do your thing, and we'll see what we come up with. So I grabbed a recorder similar to this one. It's just a handheld digital recorder. And also a spirit box, and I believe it was this one here. And what a spirit box is, for your audience, is just a radio where it'll scan the channels but not stop on anyone. Like this one here is old school, and I made this. I had to manipulate the electronics in it because they didn't sell them prepackaged back then. This is an old Radio Shack radio. So when you hit seek, to seek to the next channel, it'll just keep going. So it goes and it goes through.
That's why I clipped the wire, just for it to keep going.
That's right. I basically broke the seek function intentionally. And we used those two devices and just did like this 20-minute session asking questions, and nobody's home, just her and I, and we're asking questions, and we got a whole bunch of data from that. We got EVPs, which is electronic voice phenomena, which is a disembodied voice saying things like, Kristen, hey, Kristen, and Chris, just wait. And these other things. One of the spirit box captures I'll play for you.
Okay. Yes. All right. I'd like to hear that.
We're setting this up because, remember, this is my first time doing something like this. So.
Yeah. And Kristen was like really scared.
So when was this? How like what we know it wasn't last year.
No, I think this was 2019, about 2019, early 2019.
Oh, that's not that long. That's not long ago. Right.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was so much data involved that, we ended up pursuing it. But keep in mind, Kristen wouldn't listen to this stuff back for like 3 weeks.
Wow.
3 weeks. She wouldn't even care. She was frightened because it was actually answering her questions and stuff.
Wow. Yeah. I can hardly wait to hear this.
You can hear it in my voice. I'm freaking out.
Here we go.
Oh, is that what you're hearing?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Oh, I can't wait to play it back.
Sounded like Kristen.
I hope that came through okay. It says, Kristen, please help.
Please.
Is that what it said? I heard something about Kristen and then some space and a sound, but I did hear Kristen. I thought it was you talking to Kristen. It was and the spirit knew your name.
Yes, they know.
Your own, wow.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a common phenomenon for us, especially her. But we both get it, and our names are similar. It's Chris and Kristen.
Yeah.
We get Chris and Kristen back a lot
in our and investigate
our recordings, which was a little, spooky at first.
That would be spooky.
Being my first time, I was like, "Oh my God!" It said my name. You can hear in my voice. I'm freaking out, and I'm like, "Oh!" And it says, "Please help me."
Yeah, kind of says that in the music as well, but you hear that clear, Kristen, please help. And it was not one time, it's several times. And it's even without the radio. So we did about half that session with nothing, just the recorder going. And we hear this whispery voice going, hey, Kristen, and stuff in the background, like, wow, what was going on? No, we didn't hear that in real time. It was when we played it back.
Right.
But we did hear the spirit box in real time because it's loud. So that kind of got us started. It took her about 3 weeks to get over that.
Yeah,
and then
want to listen.
She got into it after that. And now she's the first one that wants to play back the data. Like, oh yeah.
So how do you go about getting that data, and how do you know where to go after you checked out your house? Then how do you find the places to go to?
Well, there are plenty of like known haunted locations.
Are there?
Oh, for sure. Things like Lizzie Borden's house, and there's a cemetery.
What's that feel like, Lizzie Borden? Lizzie Borden something and gave her dad 60 rounds.
Lizzie took an axe.
Yep. She really did, and it's open doors and stuff. And We've been there, but we've been, lots of different places. Some of them are public places, like cemeteries and things of that nature. There's one in particular called Spider Gates we like, and it's open during the day. We go during the day, which surprises a lot of people.
Yeah,
we do most of our investigating daytime.
Yeah.
Don't think you need to go at night. They don't, wake up at night or anything. It phenomena occurs.
So what can the spirits do to you? So they're in a different dimension. So can they touch you or push you or hurt you physically when they're in the spiritual dimension?
Yes.
They can?
Yes, they can. If they have an extreme amount of energy, they can touch you. I have a story about when I was a child. I think it was, I don't know, like around 8. I was playing upstairs in my old house. I grew up on a farm, my old farmhouse. My friend was standing she was sitting way in back of me and in my room. And we had to go, we have a flight of stairs. It was I'm going to set it up. It was an old cape, and it was a loft inside. It was an open plan. It was a loft. So my room was at the top of the stairs. We had like 14 wooden stairs going down. And my mom called, or I thought I heard my mom call, and I stood at the top of the stairs. And remember, I've been traumatized throughout, since I remember, through these negative entities. And behind me, like I said, I went to the stairs. I felt 2 big pair of hands just push me on my back, and I went down the flight of stairs. So
really?
yes, they can touch you. I mean, it also now when I'm like doing dishes or anything, I can feel hands on my shoulders, but it's a good feeling. Because
when did it go from scared the hell out of you to feeling good? How did that happen?
Well, I still get scared the hell out of. So
but you moved. This was a childhood home.
Yeah, this is a childhood home. But now that I'm really into this, I can still feel things. How it's negative. I can feel the negative activity. I can feel the warmth and the love of some of them. So, like I said, my house now that I live in, I'll be doing dishes, and I get a hand on my shoulder, and I feel the warmth and love of whoever it is. I don't know.
Really?
I'm not quite psychic, so I don't know.
Well, she is, but we don't call ourselves psychics.
Right.
I'm like
me either.
Training, but she's definitely the more, one that would be like an empath, and she feels more. She does get her hair tugged and different things.
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yes, I do.
How come I don't get that stuff happening to me? Maybe because I didn't want it. Maybe that was it.
It's true. It could be.
We feel like we're like beacons or something because we're open to these things. Maybe. It's almost like, it sets a light off or something on the other side, and they seem to know.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, like 5 years old, 6 years old, we lived in this old house. And I knew there was energies in the house. I could feel them. I was afraid because I didn't understand what they were, but they never actually touched me. They never came near me. I could just sense them in the house. So this is astonishing that, the way you're telling me this. It's really brilliant.
For some reason, I don't know what it is, but they have a thing for my hair. They like touching my hair. We have a clip of that as well, but
that is freaking me out. Like from out of nowhere, they touch you?
Yes, it does freak me out. And I've had it happen in several different places.
Yeah, we can actually see it on video. And one of the videos we had, you could see their hair kind of move, and she had been saying something's touching my hair, and you can see the camera was behind us, like an infrared camera. That was at night, and you could see her hair go over.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's really,
the phenomenon is very interesting. We want to know why, what happens when you die. Like the basic question everybody wants to know.
Yes.
Yeah, where do you go, and what is it like, and why are some spirits seemingly here and others, are in,
go
heaven,
away. Yeah.
Call it,
Why is that?
Well, we think there are different reasons for it. Yeah. We like the philosophy of panpsychism, which is to say that everything, right? Pan means everything and psychism means mind. Everything, all matter can hold a consciousness to some degree. You know, and we like the trees as an example. I know there's some documentaries out there in trees that your audience may have seen how trees can communicate with each other, and they use the mycelium, which is like a fungus that grows under the earth, and send each other nutrients or choke off another tree. They apparently can recognize their own offspring. They know the difference.
And they won't feed the other offspring that's not theirs.
Right. They'll send the nutrients through the stomach, which is an amazing process that the two species can work together that way. It's almost like a data network in the ground, you know. So to say that that tree isn't conscious in some way, that of course it is. It must be. It knows human presence. Scientists have proved this. It knows when people are near.
Standing next
they
to
actually
it, they
attempt to move their branches and things of that nature away from them. If that's true, and all matter, we're all kind of made of the same stuff, right? We believe that consciousness, as it were, like spirit, can maintain these things. Now, that's not to say a tree has the same consciousness as you or I,
of course,
or even our pets, but it is conscious in some level.
It is. So, you know, it has feelings. So, you know, my big thing is stop chopping them down, people.
I think it's a great explanation for things like haunted objects, you know, like a haunted doll. We've got some dolls behind us over there. And most people that have any kind of haunted object, they're not haunted 24/7. It's like they just get inhabited occasionally, you know, maybe the doll moves or something like that. And I think that is why.
I've never heard any of this stuff. This is really amazing. Well, I know about the trees. I guess
the trees are fascinating.
Yes. That's pretty much, I think, with everything that's on the planet, though, has a vibration and it resonates. Incidentally, you know, WWRS tonight is about that very same thing. And I was going to be using the example. Well, I was going to use the example of you know, tuning in and just like trees, you know, are connected by underground roots and they interact with one another. I was going to use that. We'll use a different one now.
Much like the mycelium.
No, why? That's good. It goes with it.
It does.
Much like the mycelium between trees being used as a network, we also kind of think, and it's only a theory or a hypothesis, that maybe our subconsciouses are connected together. And that is why things like telepathy work and being able to read somebody. There's something on a subconscious.
I agree. I agree with that, actually.
Almost like you're tapping into a network and anything can be known.
Yes.
We've also experimented with remote viewing and part of a remote viewing group with Michelle, as you know.
Are you involved in that group? I didn't.
No.
So do you do remote viewing, Chris or Kristen? Both. How do you do that?
Well, I started doing it, but then I have a about that.
Did you?
I took to it a little bit more than her, so I've done it a little bit more, but we've both done it and both had success with it. And it's a fascinating thing. Like, you know, you just get a number and Michelle teaches controlled remote viewing, or CRV. And that's where you're going to have like a diagram, you're going to have descriptions, and there's a format to it. You know, it's based on the military form of this because our military used remote viewing to, you know, more or less spy on the Russians, and they did it to us and all that stuff. If you've ever seen that movie, documentary Third Eye Spies with Russell Targ, it's a fascinating movie. It's out there and Netflix and other places. You can watch it pretty much anywhere. We can more or less do that style. There's also associative remote viewing, which is very quick, where you're just kind of doing a quick drawing based on something, but the only information I get is a number. And then I just got to try to open up my mind and see what comes in and try not to change it. And that's the tricky part, right? So my mind wants to take whatever information I get, that first little glimmer I get from looking at that number, and then turn it into something, and it plays games. And we have things called what they call an analytic overlay, an AOL.
Yeah.
We'll go and try to make sense of it, because the mind is always trying to make sense of things. And this is something we run across in our data as well. I've actually got an interesting clip for you.
Okay.
That I wanted to play. That's
Let's
a little
play
bit related. No, this is
what?
It's a little bit related to what we're talking about.
Okay.
The mind can start to change the data.
Oh, yes.
Right. Because the mind is always trying to make sense of whatever stimulus it gets. And that's true when we're listening back to data. Some of these words, they sound a little distorted. They might sound like one thing or another. Now, if I tell you this next clip says bring light Lucifer, that's what you'll hear.
Yeah.
But if I tell you it says Frank Michael Christopher, that's what you'll hear. So it's a little bit, I don't know if you remember the Yanni Laurel thing that went around the internet a few years ago.
Laurel, 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 Laurel.
It's some.
Do you remember that? It was kind of in the news and people were talking about it. People would hear different things based on the way their ears were tuned.
Especially women would hear like Yanni, and it's because the different, yeah, I can't even say it. Different frequencies in our ears, the women.
Right. Women had heard a little differently than men in general. And age had something to do with it as well.
Sure.
But let me play you this clip real fast.
Okay.
It should be this button if I did this correctly. So you could hear that two ways. Apophenia is the name of that. It's like an auditory pareidolia.
Okay.
Your mind will try to make sense of words that may not be anything at all.
Sure.
You know, so we have to be very careful when we parse the data that we collect to try to just present things that are pretty clear, and most people would agree. Oh, yeah, that says, "Hey, Kristen," or that says this, whatever it is.
Right, but that was something, because right there is the actual thing.
That's like a Yanni Laurel thing. Yep.
Yanni Laurel. Yeah, it's really weird, but yeah.
I always thought that. Oh, did we just playing something and I talked over it?
No, nope.
Oh, okay. So, I was hearing voices just then. That's why I stopped. I thought,
really?
Playing something. That's why I stopped. Okay, that's happened a couple of times. So, I've always been of the belief that when something's on another dimension, they may be able to be in the space, but they can't control the space, and that we control the physical space when they come around. But what you've been sharing with me, that's not true, because I asked the question, can they touch you and things like that? They actually can.
Yes.
Right. And there are entities out there that are somewhat, nefarious and don't necessarily go away because you tell them to, and a lot of people tout that. Well, just tell the spirit to leave if it bothers you. And that is a great first step. But we found in our experience, because we got so into this for a while, that we were drawing things from other locations into our own homes. And
we had an obsession with that. Yeah.
An attachment. It was really because we were really obsessed with this data.
Yeah.
It seemed to lead us down this rabbit hole, and we could never answer all the questions. And we were getting these weird replies, and we were thinking about it
all the time.
That we were thinking about it all the time. Seemed to draw it closer. And then we were able to just get even more crazy EVPs and different things.
EVP means what?
Electronic voice phenomena.
Okay.
So that is a disembodied voice. That is a voice that comes across without any help of, say, a radio or any kind of white noise anything added to it.
They go right into the recorder. And
right.
Sometimes they can select. That's another thing. Sometimes they can select, if you have two recorders going, which recorder that they want to speak in.
Right. You could have them side by side. I'll tell you an interesting story. This goes back to that Spider Gates location that we like so much, because we had so much paranormal activity happen there in our visits. I believe it was our first visit. We were walking around, and we had Kristen has a digital recorder like this one. It wasn't this particular one, but she has headphones plugged into it. Everything she's hearing in her ears is coming through the microphone of the recorder. And the two of us are walking together, and we both heard somebody yell, "Hello." And it was so loud, we both jumped up in the air like, "What?" We're looking around. Who is that? Trying to figure out where the voice came from. There's nobody around, nothing. And then when we went back and played the data, it wasn't on the recorder.
And it wasn't on the other recorder we were recording as well.
Yep.
Behind us.
So it didn't come through, although she heard it. And the only thing she can hear is what's coming through that recorder. So that was fascinating.
Yeah, it must. So
they used our eardrums as a microphone. They used our eardrums as a microphone. So the other side can be selective in where it is heard and what it vibrates. We've gotten some of that electronic voice phenomena during our recordings with people. And
oh yes,
even yesterday we were talking to our guest, Milne, and there was a couple of whispery things in here that she definitely didn't say. And we've had other guests where, you know, we had angry type spirits seemingly talking behind us in the recording. And I don't know if it was all our energy together or what that is, but it's fascinating.
I'm trying to figure out how come I don't sense them that much or that often, and how I get protected by that. That's what I've been thinking about. How come this doesn't affect me that much, and how am I protected by it?
When we had you on, several times, I wondered the same thing. I'm like, how come I get touched and he doesn't? I wish I could see and know, but I can't. So we're all different and unique in our own ways.
Yeah. To give you an idea of haunting our own home, I'll play one other clip because it's so clear. I don't think you not hear this. This is a case where it is an interesting scenario. We weren't together this night. Kristen called me. You know, we were talking about like, wow, it seems like there's something in the air. And we were really into it.
I felt a lot of energy in my house, like a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it with Chris.
So she calls me and I've got her on speakerphone.
So we're on the phone
in my house, and I've got a recorder set up, and I do have a spirit box, but it's not in the clip. And we're getting ready, and we're talking about, you know, we're gonna, because we'll ask spirit, we'll say, talking to this box, there's a couple of recorders around. You can touch this, kind of directing the spirit to do what we'd like it to do. And before we actually got into it, we caught 2 EVPs that are like Class A EVPs. Now, what you'll hear in this clip, you're going to hear like a sound, and that's not a spirit box. That's actually the recorder itself being overdriven.
By spirit touching it.
Right. And it has input levels. They were set correctly. It wasn't near anything loud. But when it's touched, sometimes the levels on it and lights will start to blink funny. And it's a real thing to see when that happens. That doesn't happen every time, but it happened on
once
this time.
In a while, but
so you'll hear Kristen and I talking to each other, setting up to do a session. We haven't started the session. And you're going to hear this voice that in the middle go, I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
And that's not us.
And we're over the phone.
Yep.
So really? Okay.
Yep. So I've got an external recorder, Kristen on speakerphone, and you'll hear this voice in the middle say, I'm going to say it. And that is spirit. That's not us.
Black box.
Or this box or that box. So you hear that, I'm going to say it. That isn't us.
When I say
nobody's
black
home.
Box, you
know,
that's when she says, I'm going to say it.
Well, you know, I have a black box that does that kind of stuff too. A friend of mine invented it, and I have the very first one, and now they're smaller, and I could never get it to work. But this is what the
interesting. So,
this was the
it looks like a drum case.
Yeah, I thought it was, but connected with the program on his that comes with it, you can talk into it and you can ask questions, and it gives information. Now, I could never make the box work. I spent 10 hours listening to static, and that's all I heard.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Is it all white noise? Do you know?
Yeah, for me, it was just all white noise. It drove me nuts. And then another guy, one of my clients, he started listening to me and went, oh my God, that's my father. He died when I was 4 years old. And then, it seemed like his father told him, what happened. And and a few of my friends could do it. For me, I couldn't get it to work.
So you couldn't hear anything when that happened?
Not a thing. So,
I'm interested in how the device works. I love ITC, or instrumental transcommunication, and that's where you're using
I can turn you on to the guy that invented it. He's got several different, he's done a whole lot more, and they're a lot more advanced. I can connect you with the guy.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd be curious to know.
I was just curious, how it worked. Like it was all white noise, and so your friend heard it, but you didn't. So there's right there is like
several other people heard it, but I didn't. And one of the reasons partly was that we thought is that, I spent like 50 years or more tuning in, being psychic, and these tools are really set up for people that don't have any awareness or any skills. That seems to be, if no one's ever been psychic before, it works for them. And those of us that have done a lot, it didn't quite work for us.
Yeah, well, I feel anything can work. People use divining rods, they use pendulums and all sorts of things, right? And maybe that's a subconscious movement. I don't know, but it seems to give you the right answers if you're tuned into it. It's the same with any of these things. I mean, we kind of consider them toys too, but we like them. We have this one here for us.
Okay. That's our new one. Yeah, they just made
nice.
What does DHP stand for?
Dark Horse Paranormal.
Okay. So I get energy from the box though. So maybe I'm just not that hearing oriented when I do my work. Maybe that's what it is too.
Yeah, just practice tuning into whatever that vibration is. I mean, you're such a good reader. Like I don't have that skill where I can read people just from the gut. You do so well. And I love that. And I'm envious of what you do.
Yes.
But I did want to tell your audience, we have 2 shows a week, and that Dark Horse Paranormal is the name of one of them. Yeah, it's our Thursday night show, and Bigfoot and the Bunny is the name of our Saturday show.
So how do people find that? We'll do another promo after the show.
We're on different outlets. We're on several Facebook outlets. We're on a paranormal network called Paralinks, the Paranormal United Network. We have our own pages on Facebook. Those are all on Facebook. You can search for Dark Horse Paranormal, Bigfoot and the Bunny. You'll find something if you look for these things.
Okay.
For the Paranormal United Network, you'll find that. We're also on we're still on UPRN for Bigfoot and the Bunny, which is the United Paranormal Network. That's a different network. Also YouTube. We really need people to go and subscribe to our YouTube. So
yes, please.
If you're looking for us on YouTube, just look for Dark Horse Paranormal Productions, and we lump everything in there.
Okay. On YouTube.
On YouTube as a good place to go and hear some of this stuff. And we like yourself, we're interviewing guests, and it's not all just about our data, but we do have a podcast dedicated to our data, and you can hear the stuff we collect if you're interested in that
on Dark Horse Paranormal on
YouTube. So you guys were friends and for a long time, and then found out that you've got similar skills and awareness. Who came up with the idea of doing a podcast?
That would be me.
Yes.
Yeah, we became more than friends. I mean,
that I was being cautious.
Right? I love that word, cautious.
Cautious.
For
a long time, and it's great. Like we have a telepathy between us that's like unbelievable. We're always in each other's heads. We're always saying things like, "Get out of my head." So it could be some obscure topic, and I'll just be like daydreaming on it, and she'll say whatever that topic is. Hey, I was just thinking, like, really? Because I've been thinking about that for 5 minutes. So, and that stuff happens like almost daily. It's ridiculous.
Just random stuff too. It's not, it's just really
it's amazing how that works. But how do we come up with the podcast? So
what made you
a creative outlet? I was a musician in a former lifetime, and not a
former lifetime in this existence, right?
In this existence.
Okay. What did you play, by the way? What was your?
I played bass, mostly bass, electric bass guitar, but I also play guitar, and there's some instruments behind us, and I love music. And then I have a thing where if I don't have the creative outlet, I start to go a little crazy. Like I need something to do,
I understand.
And my job and everything is tough to do another band. And this was something I enjoyed. I kind of think of it like being in a band, having a podcast, having a video podcast or whatever it is. And we started by doing audio ones, the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. And we did a few of those. And then we took that experience over into a video podcast, and we were using Skype, and we got on, a radio network, and we just worked at our craft, and we've been doing it for like 3 years. And it's just something we like. I do the music that is within our podcast. If you hear stuff, it's something I made, either played the instruments or worked with samples and put them together, loops and different things. And it gives me that creative outlet. That's nice. And I love it because, we're both driven to know what happens. Again, when we die, right? Everybody wants to know, like, why are some of these ghosts seemingly
Still
earthbound,
here,
these spirits,
right.
and some seem to go to heaven or whatever you want to call it, the light.
Do you have a theory?
Occasionally. Well,
do you have a theory on that?
There are a lot of theories out there. Sometimes it's things like, well, in a residual haunting, you could go to a battlefield per se, and you might feel something from that. And that's almost like the land is scarred. And there may be spirits there that are trapped from the traumatic deaths that occurred, and maybe they don't leave, or perhaps they've made a psychic imprint on that land, and then, like a broken record, it repeats the same information. They call that a residual haunting. In the case of intelligent hauntings, it could be things like somebody looking out for their family, or is afraid to cross over. We heard a really funny story yesterday about an earthbound spirit that didn't want to cross over because the gentleman had a mistress and a wife on the other side.
Yeah, and was afraid to go.
That's for Milne.
For where he was going to go when he went. Right.
Yeah, I love that story.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, he didn't want to go.
He didn't want to go.
He didn't want to confront
both of them. Yeah.
You know, like he'd be in the same room, and then, you know, they're like, "Oh, he got me."
That could be hell.
Yes,
that would be hell, right?
That was my first thought when she said that. I'm like, oh, that's hell.
Yeah,
but then it could also be heaven as well if you get this, you know, the situation right.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Maybe they don't care on that side. You know, everything goes. You know, could have been very bohemian heaven. I'm not sure, but you know, it could be reasons like that. You know, and you know, a person was murdered. They're looking out for their family, or there's just some unfinished business, and they seem to stick around. And those would be the intelligent type hauntings where you get answers. And
children. I mean, children are so, you know, innocent. They don't know. That's why there's a lot of little boy or little girl hauntings.
Really?
Yes, because they don't understand that they passed away, and they don't know how or what to do. So,
right, and this is where people cross them over. You know, we did this one time where we encountered a child spirit repeatedly at a location. And same in location, in fact, where we got that hello, a very paranormal area, seemingly. And we got in contact with a child spirit named Toby, is how he identified himself. And we would go there and we said, you know, Toby, how old are you? And the spirit box would reply several times, 7, 7, 7. You know, she would ask the question, 7, 7, 7. And we made a return trip, asked the same question, got the same answers. And we, you know, we're aware that there was definitely a conscious spirit there. In one of our recordings, he goes on to whimper and cry for his mother. He goes, "Where's mom?" And it's all in the same voice over the course of several minutes, which is fascinating, because you got to think the box is just spinning. It's getting DJ commercials, things of that nature on it, but all in the same voice. And he says 7, and where's mom? And he said he was scared to leave, and these sort of things. You know, we're asking why don't you leave? And he said scared to leave, and it was very clear. So we went back and we tried to walk him out and cross that spirit, and we think we did.
How did you do it? Did you help?
We think we did.
We returned and we were not able to talk to him again. We went through the motions of talking to him and leading him out of the gates of that cemetery. Kristen had ground up some candy and herbs,
and I put a lot of love
and a really beautiful thing
intentions into it, and we made a trail right out to the gate and opened that gate and said, Toby, come on. I actually put my hand out, said, hold my hand. I did feel something, and like somebody was holding my hand, and we walked out that gate. And when we returned again, he was no longer there.
On another date. We haven't been able to talk to him since. So we think it worked. But we're not as good at that thing, you know.
Like you are. You probably would be able to. Yeah.
Sure. And you know, just mediums out there that can see the spirit going into the light and stuff. We don't quite get that, but we're working at it.
We are.
I've been kind of a meat and potatoes kind of psychic. You know, I've just been interested in giving information to people, helping them go through stuff. I haven't been focused on what happens on the other side, or, you know, I've always just been focused on getting through whatever is happening today. I'm realizing There must be a lot of entities out there like that little boy that's lost in time or in a dimension.
Yes.
That was a really beautiful thing you two did.
We wonder if they sometimes play roles, because it's such a common story. It's like the woman in white story. You've heard the woman in white story. Somebody.
No. I dated a couple, but maybe not those.
This is like an international story with
really?
this scorned lover who jumps off a castle wall or a cliff or something.
Really?
She's dressed in white and sometimes blue, and it's a story. There's a tale, in every state,
almost every state
in the country, and even internationally, like these stories persist in Europe and whatnot. And I wonder, is it really the scorned lover, or do people project this out somehow? And maybe a spirit does fit into that role or accepts it. Same thing with some of the demonic activity that people call demons out there. Not to say that they don't exist, but we certainly don't think everything's a demon.
We call it the dreaded D word because we don't think everything is demonic.
Overused word.
We think they're more negative.
But I do think maybe a bitter spirit might take that role, say some words like Lucifer or whatever, and it's Beelzebub. And
we got that anyway on
we've had spirits use those names, like it was something that was demonic, but probably was just a disincarnate negative spirit. I don't know, it's fascinating. We continue to learn every day. It's so fun.
How do you protect yourself from those demonic energies that could attach or get attached or follow you around? How do you deal with that? How do you handle it?
Honestly, the best thing, there's different exercises you can do and meditations, entering the light, cleansing you, and these kind of things. You can use herbs, sage, things that people talk about. But when we haunted
what do you do?
Homes where we couldn't get rid of it and couldn't ask it to leave, or we were in it, we still were having these weird activities. Kristen was seeing a lot of stuff back then. It was
I don't see
period of time where it was getting a little spooky in both our homes. It was in the mind. We really just had to stop doing it for a while and give it a break and not think about it. It was literally like the thought of seems to attract them. It makes you more of a magnet, because we were obsessing over this data so much that we were getting these class A EVPs in our living rooms. I think was really contributing, was like being like a beacon to keep them there, bring them closer.
So you were like calling them out, even though you didn't realize you were calling to them.
Exactly. We weren't intentionally doing that, although we were like, wow, look at what we're getting. This is crazy. And it was almost in that case like a rabbit hole. Like we would ask questions and it would just lead to more questions and more questions. And we're trying to figure out, who is this person? And is this an alien at one point? It was bananas. And we got podcasts about it. So if you do seek us out, you can find those. We can also find some of our podcasts wherever you get podcasts. If you look for Dark Horse Paranormal, give those a listen, and you'll hear some of that interplay between us and what was going on and the data we collected. But honestly, it was the walking away from it and just giving it a break. But that was the real cleanser, if you will.
If I go now, knowing what I do know, that what we know and what happened, when I go to certain places, I do meditation, and then I, believe it or not, I do like a small prayer. I call upon my guardian angels, ancestors, guardian spirits, and I pray to them. And then I do it again just before we go into the place, and I do it again when we walk out. So I do have a thing. Right.
And I do some banishing rituals. I have a little bit of a background in sorcery and magic. Growing up.
Magic like in doing magic tricks like prestidigitry, or magic like in
No, sir. As in like spell work and ritual type work. It fascinated me, things like Golden Dawn and other mystery schools growing up. So I learned a lot about that. And there are certain rituals, like a lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, for instance, and I'll do that. And I used to take that out with me when I was doing teams, and everybody would look at me like, "Wait, what is wrong with him?" And I have my athame, or kind of like a dagger, and doing these things, drawing pentagrams out in the air. And it looked a little crazy, but you know what? It's more commonly accepted now in those communities than it was then. But I find them helpful.
Yeah, I'm an eclectic witch, so I incorporate a lot of
with a W, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure everybody got that right. You know.
Hey, I can beat that as well. Ask Chris. So yeah, but I do my own thing, and I incorporate other religions into, and especially when I feel that I have an arsenal in my pocketbook. Honest to God, I carry it everywhere. So when I feel whatever spirit or entity it is, I will definitely break out something that I know, and knowing what it is, and do it from there. So
this is fascinating what you guys are doing, and it's so different than what I do. I've always thought of myself as somebody with an awareness of like 1 inch deep, 5 miles square. And what I've discovered in the last couple of years, coming on podcasts like yours and then having my own, I'm actually 1 inch square and 5 miles deep in my awareness. And listening to the things that you're talking about today, I don't know anything about anything that you're talking about. It's been mind-blowing for me.
It's new, but I think everything is kind of related. The same goes for like alien abduction phenomena, and possibly even things like Bigfoot sightings. There is some sort of connection. People that have been abducted by aliens often come back from it with enhanced psychic skills. They may be able to read people better, or they have really lucid and astral dreams, or they pick up some kind of, I'll call them a superpower. Ray Hernandez is a gentleman, a UFO researcher, who coined the term contact modalities. And that's what he's talking about, are all these kind of abilities that seem to be given to the person post alien abduction phenomena. I feel that haunted phenomena and alien abduction phenomena are very much related. We don't totally see every parallel line. Can't necessarily say that they're the same thing, but they are closely related, more so than you would think. I feel like all this stuff, psychic abilities, everything, it's all kind of joined at the hip, and that's what we're trying to put together. And we're lucky in that we get to talk to so many different people that have had different experiences, like yourself. That have some skill or have some experience, or they tell a tale, and you go, wow, all right. And then you start to see some of these parallels. It's like I mentioned about the haunted childhoods earlier. Most of our guests have had haunted childhoods. Why is it that they now have paranormal experiences as an adult? Is there some kind of connecting line between those two things? I think there is.
What I've also noticed is that, and again, I haven't even hung around very many psychics in my lifetime. I've always been a one-man show. I've always worked on my own independently. And I've had a lot of contact with other psychics, and my focus always has been helping somebody in a crisis, in a problem right now. And I haven't been much more interested in anything in my psychic ability except for giving service like that. And I've been learning there's so much more to those skills and those abilities and that awareness, and talking with you guys today and being around other psychics, it's been mind-blowing, like today.
It is. It's a gift of being the host. You get to see this now, that you hear all these different sides and tales,
learn from,
and it's great. Or like you could just never read enough books to.
So why is it then that if you're triggering all kinds of questions in me that I'm going to be thinking about for a couple of years? So how come then? Because I am really sharp, I'm really intuitive, I'm really psychic. Why would I be drawn to that? Just giving service, but missing all that other stuff that you guys do, and I wonder why.
You would be really good at it too.
Well, it's probably, you have a natural gift from the gut, if you will, like instant, kind of like the remote viewing that we mentioned earlier, being able to turn the filter off and just get that information and relay it to the person. You're really gifted in that sense. So naturally you'd be drawn to doing that more. You like helping people.
That's my thing.
Great guy.
That is your
and
wow, maybe. depends on who you talk to, but yes, mostly that.
We just kind of fell into this through whatever our interests are, and everybody has their own experiences, and skills
and different.
Things you practice. So I'm sure you could do all this stuff if you went out and tried to say, I'm going to investigate a haunted location.
That's why
if you had any interest in that, and you went out and did
actually cross people.
You'd probably be like, oh wow, I think I just saw a ghost walk by.
Yeah, you'd be able to help them because you have that psychability, and
so you can turn off that filter.
That's really fascinating.
The filter of the mind.
I've this has been one of the most interesting conversations that I've had, not just on my side of the crystal ball, but this is one of the most interesting conversations I've had in my career. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
What you have shared. Wow, I'm just blown away. So how can people find you again? Just want to tell everybody how, and so that they can get their minds blown as well.
Well, the easiest way is to go on to YouTube or Facebook, look for our show titles, Bigfoot and the Bunny, which is a story behind that. And Dark Horse Paranormal.
All right. What is this? I've been dying to ask.
Right. It's a question we get asked a lot. Like, what did you come up with that name? Because it seems so from left field. And the reason why we have that is I had moved to a new place, and we were enjoying ourselves. We used to go outside and look at the stars.
Yeah, all the time. We still do.
Kind of thing. And we had this family of bunnies that lived in the shrubbery, dividing the property line.
Okay.
And we'd go out, and at the time we might have been having a few sangrias, and we'd throw them some fruit, feed the bunnies, and the bunnies seemed to like that. And
drunk bunnies.
But there seemed to be a little bit of phenomena going on in the new place, and we thought that, well, what's going on? This is kind of weird. Like, how can I move and it's still haunted? Because we're haunted, that's why. But anyways, we're like, we're out there one night, we're standing outside and having the sangrias, looking at the sky, and we see this orange light, and what was be a UFO to us, and it is humming. Now, it's not moving as fast as a shooting star, but it's going way faster than a jet.
It wasn't a meteor at all.
Wasn't a meteor. It's bright orange, and we're both just watching it go.
And all I could do was point up. I could not say anything because this is something that is not right. Went like this, and it just sailed across
the sky,
right through the
beautiful
horizon.
night, and
so it definitely wasn't a meteor. It was not a plane. So.
It was way faster than a jet. And it's the next thing you know, you'll see Bigfoot chasing the bunny. And then when it came time to come up with a show name, she reminded me of that.
I go, well, how about Bigfoot and the bunny? He's like, oh my God, I love it. I'm like, really? I was goofing around. I was joking. He's like, no, I really like that. It took me a while to like it. So
there was a possible UFO experience with it,
paranormal.
Watching this, because we couldn't explain it. It's a UFO, at least to us.
Yeah.
We had the bunnies in the yard, and he said, next thing you know, we'll see Bigfoot chasing a bunny.
So it's based on a paranormal event between both of us.
So that's where that comes from.
Yep.
So I interrupted you when you were doing your call to action. So we can do that now and edit the other one out. So if you want to talk about how people can get you to you again, so it's clearer, so it's all together. Okay. So you get
however you want to do it. Yeah. You can find us on Facebook at Bigfoot and the Bunny, at Dark Horse Paranormal Productions. If you search those names on Facebook, you'll find us. We have a network, Paralinks, the Paranormal United Network, that is out there, and you'll see links to these things on our pages as well. That's great. There's a lot of people on there that are international. We have viewers in Australia, Japan that regularly join the show, and we have Scotland. A live chat going. They come in and we do the live chat. We answer people's questions and comments. We made quite a few friends that way, and that's fun. We're also on YouTube at Dark Horse Paranormal Productions. And if you do go out there, please give it a like and a subscribe.
Subscribe, please.
As you know, those subscriptions are important. YouTube is very kind of tough on people. Google. So we would love it. We'd appreciate those likes and subscribes. And those are the best ways to get us. We have a website, darkhorseparanormal.com. It's a little out of date, but most of the stuff is in there, and you'll find links to these pages from there. And those are the best places. If you're interested in remote viewing, we can give Michelle a plug. You can find Michelle at www.butterflyeffectscenter.com. And that's how we started out, taking courses with her with the remote viewing stuff that we discussed earlier. And that's pretty much it.
What an amazing experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us on. Really appreciate it.
Well, this brings us to the end of one of the most amazing shows that I've ever done and ever been around. I learned more about paranormal tonight than I've done at any other time in my life. So fascinating. And I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. And before we say goodbye, I've got a couple of requests. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And the subscriptions, if you subscribe to our channel, what that'll do is get us higher up on the ratings. And the more ratings, the higher the ratings, the easier it is for us to put this podcast on the air. Please like and comment as well. Your likes get us more ratings, and your comments, please say something about the show. And if you do, we're going to be around for a really long time. And incidentally, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere else you listen to your podcasts. And if you're looking for me personally, you can find me on my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. You can find me also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And now, just before I say goodbye, I have these words. Do good, stay safe, and above all, just be kind. Good night, everybody.